Welcome back, everyone, to Out of the Main. John, how have you been?
I wasn't expecting that question. Usually you're trying to catch me off guard. I've been waiting for the sun to rise. How's that?
Yeah. I didn't think you'd be able to pull yourself out of that one like that. Jeez. Oh, my gosh. Well, again, welcome, everyone. Of course, you can find us at outofthemain.com and, of course, Facebook, Twitter, and don't forget to subscribe and like. And I think that's everything I'm legally obligated to say as a professional podcaster. So without further ado, let's welcome back to the program a guest we had in September 2021. It seems like just yesterday, but we had so much fun, we thought we'd do it again. And welcome back, everyone, the great Marc Jordan. Marc, thanks for coming back.
Thanks for having me. Delighted to be here. Delighted to be anywhere.
Delighted to exist.
Yeah. Well, like we said, I did go back and look because I couldn't remember how long ago it was. It was September 2021, and a lot's happened since then.
Yeah.
Most recently was an album that you teased on our last appearance, but is now out. And John, since you delivered the pun just on time, what is the name of the record?
Oh, the new one, Waiting for the Sun to Rise?
Waiting for the Sun to Rise. So, Marc, I was surprised not only with the timing of this, because it seemed to come right on the heels of the record you did with Amy, but also the style takes a different turn. It's quite jazzy. So tell us a little bit about how this record came to be in your collaborator. I think it's Lou Pamonti. Is that how you say it?
Yes. Yeah. Well, Lou and I did a record before this, and I enjoyed working with him, and he's a sensational arranger, you know. And this record took a hell of a long time to make because of COVID, and it was hard to get, you know, musicians. I like to record. I like to get players together still, you know. I'm old school like that, and I like the magic that happens if you hire the right guys. It can be exponentially great, you know. So that was difficult, but we had enough, you know, interaction that we made it all work. And they're more the last record had a lot of covers on it, and the duet record as well had a lot of covers on it, but this one is mostly original material.
You know, I noticed that when I listened to this, the first, well, let me go back to when we had Marc on before. You talked about, we discovered you through the Yacht Rock era and area, right. Yet you told us, I remember back, that when you're most comfortable singing and what your greatest influences are jazzy things.
Yeah. So
coming into this record, knowing that, between that and the arrangements that Lou did, I get these, it reminded me of like 50s era Sinatra, like in the wee small hours. There's sort of that swooning sort of feel. And I get some little threads of like Miles' Kind of Blue in there. But is that, I mean, we could tell by the arrangements, that's what you're attempting to evoke. But what did you have in mind when you said, I want to set out to make this record, even though we know it's been a few years?
I never really have a goal in a way. Like, okay. I know what style I want to, you know. I've gone in and out of different, you know, because I've been in the industry so long. When I started, it was more, that was the Yacht Rock era, and the players played like that. And so the records kind of sounded like that. Mm-hmm. But then we got into sampling, and then that whole other thing, and then huge intricate productions, because when synthesizers really got going and sampling and stuff. So I've always tried to, like, not, what's the right words to say, not really think too much about the end product. I just I get the best songs that I can, and songs that I enjoy singing. And yes, I learned jazz phrasing and things like that very early on, and it was, you know, it was my first influence really was that kind of was Ella and Billie Holiday and stuff like that. And so this is a bit of a return, I guess, to that. And it's the music I think I most love, and I and we did it.
Yeah. Well, if I could quickly follow up,
one-
what was all you said you like to get players together, and obviously we've got orchestra, we've got piano, we've got your vocal, and then rhythm section. There's a lot of very rubato, untempoed sections of this, so it gives the feeling that everybody is cutting live, including yourself. But what did it really look like, if you're willing to give that away?
Well, we got some people in for instance, we used the orchestra in Prague, and they were all and they were fine. I guess the COVID thing wasn't as they weren't masked,
Okay.
and they did all the orchestral stuff, and we did that live. So that was phenomenal. And then we'd get if we depending on the studio, we could get a big enough studio, we would put everybody in an ISO booth. And then, and we went into the biggest places we could. And so we would be separated, not sitting in a, in one big room. We put everybody in separate booths. And it's a little less intimate maybe, but it's better than the alternative.
So
sure.
orchestra was added then after.
Yes.
So somebody following the piano track or whatever would attempt to conduct the orchestra during these rubato sections.
Yes,
Okay.
that's exactly right. Well, you even Lou superimposed clicks.
Oh, okay.
And then he would slow them down in the rubato, like he would line them up.
Yep.
So that was very smart, because it made it easier on the orchestra and on the conductor there too.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
All right, John, feel free to cut this, but Domo Arigato, Mr. Rubato, and that's Lou Pamonti. So
Yeah.
Good job.
A great job.
You mentioned, since you brought up the Yacht Rock years and you brought up bringing guys together because it's more authentic, I was interested to see the name Randy Brecker make an appearance on this record. So is that something you had by intent, or did the song call for it? You said, I got to go get Randy to do this.
Well, he played on the previous record too. We just I just like Randy.
You've noticed since Blue Desert, I saw you miming his solo a few weeks ago on Facebook. So yeah.
No, that wasn't.
Oh, that's right. That was.
Oh, I'm trying
might
to
have to cut that out. I know one of Jerry Hayes' guys. That
Jerry, I think it was Jerry Hay.
Jerry Hay, or the flugelhorn. Oh man,
Jerry Grant?
Nope, the other one.
I think it was Jerry Hay.
Was it Jerry? That's not the name that comes to mind for me. But you would know better than me. But
Yeah.
but I know it's a long time ago. So who knows?
So
Yeah.
this
Chuck Finley.
Chuck Finley.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Now we can keep it in, John.
Okay. Phew.
So just to clarify, you didn't go into this project saying, I'm going to make a traditional jazz record. It just started to take on a life of its own, and eventually you come up with a tune, Coltrane Plays the Blues, and it's just like divine inspiration.
I wrote Coltrane Plays the Blues 15 years ago.
Really?
Pause
for dramatic effect. Wow.
Yeah.
So this project's been in you for a while.
Well, but it was quite different. In the demo was quite different. It was almost like a pop demo. It was faster, and it was I did that with my longtime collaborator John Capek.
Yeah.
And we wrote that, and I've always loved it.
Wow.
And I thought, I played it for Lou, and we kicked around the way to do it, and with the horns and it just worked out great
And the
because it has
bass
a
line.
kind of urban
Yeah.
lyric, you know. It has that kind of
That bass line so reminds me of Kind of Blue. And another
yeah.
one that does, I don't know where this came from. My wife is probably well, in her mind, the biggest Tears for Fears fan of all time.
There you go, Sam.
And there's another intro that reminds me
So
of
what?
something off of Kind of Blue, but then
So
you're
what?
doing Tears for Fear. Yeah. Well, there you go. That's exactly what I'm hearing.
Well, that's I've always thought that about Tears for Fears. I thought, da, da.
Yeah.
I've always
Oh my
thought
God.
that. Even the first time I heard it, I thought,
Everybody wants to rule the world, man.
yeah.
I've
But
never
it-
made that connection before, but now that you said that, Mark, I'm never going to be able to unhear that. John, there's a mashup that you got to make for this.
I'll pass. I think I'll pass on that.
Well, since you brought up the Yacht Rock era, and of course, people listening to the show would, if we didn't bring up the Yacht Rock stuff, would be like, do they even know who Marc Jordan is? So we'll link to the episode that we kind of went through all of that in greater detail. But if you don't mind, just for maybe people who haven't heard that yet or are curious, I thought the story, just the overall story arc of how you go from a musician trying to get noticed in Toronto to finally in LA in a room with Gary Katz in these session cats, it is interesting. That must have relay that from your own perspective again. You're trying to make it in New York or in Toronto by way of New York, and then what happens?
Well, I was playing you know, I always sent stuff down, or my manager always sent stuff down to California, you know, and in those days tapes, you know, cassettes, I guess.
Right.
Suddenly somebody heard it at Warner Brothers, and I think we sent it to Lenny, and he played it for Mo, and Mo played it for Gary, and Gary was over at Warner at that point. He'd gone from I guess it was A&M where Steely was. And so they had talent scouts in those days. They sent a guy named Marty Cohen. He was an amazing man. He discovered the Doobie Brothers and a few other big acts, you know, and so he came to Toronto, and it was winter.
I know where this is going.
Yeah. Well, he was chilly. And we luck would have it, my band was playing a gig, I think at El Macombo here in Toronto. I as I remember, and he came to the gig, and he liked it, and so we sent him more stuff, and they said, yeah, we want to sign this guy. So it was like, you know, I think November, December or something, and they flew me down, and I was in the studio before I'd even signed the contract. Wow. It had happened really fast. Wow. It was incredible, and it was you know, here I am with Jeff Porcaro and David Page, I think, was on piano. We used a number of piano players, and the bass player, I can't even remember who it was that day, but you know, there were a lot of moving parts, and Lukather was there, and there I am with my acoustic guitar, you know, singing Marina Del Rey.
Yeah.
And no, I hadn't written Marina Del Rey yet. Marina Del Rey I wrote down there. So I was singing like Mystery Man and stuff like that. And I was just, you know, because I recorded those songs like demos in Toronto, and it was okay, but they brought a whole other thing to it. Abel Boreal was there.
Wow. So what was your state of mind at this time? So you're signed, or you're not quite signed on that first day, but you're come from Toronto. You're going to be on, what was it? It was Warner. You've got Gary Katz, Steely Dan's producer. You've got Al Schmidt, from what I understand.
Yeah.
Were you in a place of mind where you were feeling your oats and you thought, I am all of that and I'm going to show these LA cats what's like? Or were you like, oh my God, where am I?
A little bit of both. And it was, oh my God, where am I? But it didn't last long because those guys were really very, very helpful. Like, there was no attitude. There was no bullshit. They were just so kind to me. They knew I was a little scared.
Mm-hmm.
And they just made it easy for me. And I gotta say, singing with those cats was unbelievable. It was like jumping on a trampoline. You know, they lifted you up. And I can't say enough about the kindness that they showed me after.
Were you there hanging out in the studio as their sessions were coming in? So if a Luther's coming in to lay down a solo, are you there watching?
Oh yeah, I was there. Yeah.
That must have been. You must.
Well, you know why I was there? Because I didn't have a car. I didn't have a car. When I got there, they stuck me in. They owned a condo in Malibu, right on the beach, and the engineer, Roger Nichols,
oh wow,
just lived down the road. So he had an illegal car. He had a track ready Pantera, and it wasn't legally like a road vehicle.
Yeah.
So he used to pick me up outside on Pacific Coast Highway and drive me to the Village Recorder every day
at 120 miles an hour, probably.
Yeah. And girls, dig this, girls would they go, oh, smokes. And it was convertible, and they'd write their numbers on pieces of paper. This happened 50 times, I swear to God. And then they pull up beside us and throw Roger their phone number on the highway driving.
Wow.
So anyway, that's.
If they only knew what a techie nerd type he was.
Well, I can imagine Mark's like catching pieces of paper out of
yeah, I'm like jumping for them, right? And Roger's there hitting Roger in the head. He doesn't care. Anyway, so he drove into the studio. So I was there until he was the last one to leave, and I was there till then. So I spent a good 16 hours every day, or at least between 12 and 16 hours every day. In that
Man, that's going to school in a hurry. Woo.
Definitely. And
then you go to school for your next record, because was this the first time that you were introduced to Jay Graydon? Was through this next recording session?
No, he played on Mannequin.
That's right. Okay.
So I met him there, and then he wanted to do a record, and I had some meetings with him, and he's such an interesting guy. Have you ever interviewed him?
Yeah, yes. We have a 3-part episode. One interview that lasted for 3 episodes. Yeah.
And it had to start at some ungodly hour because he's
he's nocturnal.
Yeah, and 3 time zones away from us. So it's like,
oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
He gets up at about 5:30 in the evening, has his breakfast, and at 7 he goes into the studio.
Yeah. Crazy.
And then 7, so that's what time here. It's so 7 is
10 here.
Yeah, so it's 10 in Toronto. And so I call him usually about 3 in the morning, Toronto time.
So do you have to stay up for that, or are you normally up then?
No, I'm up. I'm up till 4.
Oh my gosh.
So the reason I brought Jay up was kind of in a serious context with Johnson's going to school. So this, I mean, you're essentially a rookie when you're recording the first record, I'm assuming, and you're just learning so much. How did that change in the set? Because you also have what became a legendary producer, a huge, I mean, an A team of session cats. Did you learn more quickly, or were you able to apply what you learned in the second recording and it felt more comfortable to you?
Well, it was more comfortable. I mean, we did it at Jay's home studio, and it definitely. I was used to living in LA by that point, and you know, I love Jay. We were great friends to this day, and he, you know, he's an easy guy to be around, and his wife used to feed me, which was important in those days.
Mm-hmm.
Did you? He was something of a young producer in his career at that point.
Yeah.
Was he still? I mean, I think you last time you were on, you called him a mad scientist or something like that.
Yeah.
Genius.
Yeah.
Genius.
He is a genius.
Yeah.
Was he a genius there, or was he learning to become a genius? If you look back and think about it.
No, I think his whole life has been learning, but clearly he was off the chart in those days too. I mean, he used to have me sometimes hold down, stand behind it.
Yeah, we asked him about that. You explained that, and we asked him about it. He verified it. So go ahead and explain to the audience.
Well, I can't explain it because I don't know how the hell I would go behind him and stick my hands on the fretboard, and then he'd play around it. I couldn't see what he was doing really because I was behind him. And but I did watch, you know, when I came back to Toronto, I after that record, I had a big Canadian tour, and I used a guitar player here, and he was a brilliant guitar player, like, you know, totally schooled, but he was going nuts trying to play those solos. He goes, they're unplayable, you know. And I
it's funny when we asked Jay about that, he verified it, but then he kind of waved it off and said, well, Mark knows how to play guitar, so it wasn't a big deal, as if you were doing something other than holding
no
notes
baby down. I put my hands where he told me to, and they would stay there.
And hold on.
Hold on, baby. Yeah.
And I'm sure what followed, John, was a lengthy technical explanation of the chord voicing.
Well, if I can move quickly forward. So really, for Yacht Rock fans, you have the 3 albums that are considered essential listening. We covered Mannequin, we covered Blue Desert now a little bit, and then came Hole in the Wall, which was only released in Japan, as I understand, at the time.
Yes.
And it's listed as self-produced, but you said Foster, because he was in on the sessions, played a significant role. Can you just give us a synopsis of how that album was put together?
Well, David, Patty Austin, and myself were signed to this label called Sound Design in Japan, and I think it was a new label. I'm not really sure. I guess it was a new label, and they wanted some Americans on it, and they signed the 3 of us. So we went to Japan, and we did the big ceremony and blah blah blah, and we came back, and they gave me a budget, and we worked at the Yamaha studio, which was brand new in those days, and
where is that studio?
I think it's Glendale, as I remember. In Glendale, I don't even know if it exists anymore.
Okay.
But anyway, so I wrote a couple of songs on that record with Foster, he wanted to play on them, but he produced them too. He's a very kind, David's an amazing guy, and he's been so kind to me, and he's and to others, and he really helped me out because he wanted the songs to sound good, and he produced them better than I would for sure, and so he helped out and played on them and helped me produce them, and there it was.
Wow, excellent.
Yeah.
I used to debate, John, whether Mannequin or Blue Desert was the better quote unquote Yacht Rock album, and now I've decided that it is Hole in the Wall. So, and it's like I think I'm pretty set on that now.
Well, it does have Margarita on it, so
well, yeah. Margarita it is in terms of streaming, it's the biggest song I have. I mean, it's unbelievable how many streams it's had. Millions.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that should encourage people to dive deeper and start streaming the other stuff just as well. So, and speaking of streaming something, probably to its run out of streaming juice, is this album that came out, like I said, in 2022, right after we talked last. It was collaboration with your wife, Amy Sky, songwriting, singing, performing together. If people have not heard that album, they got to go listen to that. And I asked you before, but the album wasn't done. So I want to ask you again, now that I've heard it all, what was the recording process for that? Because it's recorded just beautifully, and just performances are outstanding. That's he sang, she sang.
Yeah. Well, Amy and I have been, we have a house in below Alabama in Florida, and we have at various times both our kids have lived in Nashville, so we've been on these epic drives. We drive down together and we sing in the car.
I'd love to be in the back seat just listening to that. I'd love to just be in the back seat behind the couch listening to that.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, we love it. We love to sing together, and eventually we got 3 or 4 or 5 songs that we love to sing together, and so I think it was on a trip to Florida. We went through Nashville to see Zoe, and we went to the studio and recorded I think 4 of them, and they sounded great, and we never really recorded together, lead vocals together, and duets are hard too, and because I'm as you probably notice, my phrasing is all over the fucking place,
And you don't double your own vocals, I'll bet. You don't want to try and double.
But I don't. I have done it, but oh boy, it ain't easy. So anyway, we didn't know how it would turn out, but it turned out really nicely, and we played it for a record company up here, and they said definitely we need to do this, and so we did most of the beds in Nashville, and over the years actually, and then we finished them in Toronto.
I remember when that first came out, Tom, that I looked at the song list and I asked you, did we really need another version of God Only Knows? And then I finally listened to it and I thought, oh my gosh, yes, we did. That is really a song that you think, but you think you've heard everything there is to hear in it in all the other versions, and yet yours just comes alive. It just bursts out of the speakers as it builds at the end. Boy, wow.
Agreed. Yeah. And the answer obviously was, well, we needed that version, that's for sure.
Right.
And I just wanted to make, hopefully this will get back to Amy, but on an album that has plenty of classic covers, my favorite song on the entire thing is Long Shot, which she wrote with, I'm not familiar, who is her collaborator? Anthony Vanderberg.
Anthony Vanderberg. He is brilliant, and he's a guitar player and producer here in Toronto. And we started, when we first came back to Canada, Amy worked with him a lot. However, he has a debilitating disease, which they actually don't know what it is, I don't think.
Wow.
And he can't play guitar really anymore, and it's sad. It it breaks my heart. But anyway, he helped us out on a couple of things, and worked with players, and it was he could work a couple hours a day, but he's really not well. And but anyway, he wrote that song with Amy, and it's a great song.
Fantastic song. All right. Well, could we switch gears slightly from your talents as a musician and composer to somewhat of a hidden talent that you touched on last time we spoke? We didn't get into it much, and we're seeing more and more of your artwork now as you get more, at least it seems like, more active on Instagram. So tell us, you did mention that you were an artist and you get inspiration visually as well as you do musically. So just tell us a little bit more about your foray into, is it paint? Is it acrylic? What is it?
Anything I can lay my hands on. It's got graffiti markers, it's house paint, it's artist acrylics, it's anything. And I get all my canvases and my frames at the dump.
Really?
Most of them.
No kidding.
Not the big canvases, but the smaller ones. I get them and I repurpose them and I fix them up, and then I paint, and I call it flat music because they're sort of abstract. I have a series of red canoe paintings, which are I love canoes, so they're the perfect technology in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
And so I have a bunch of those, but the abstract ones are sort of, I call it flat music, and they're sort of abstract, Dali-esque pictures of instruments and people playing them and things like that. But it's very abstract, and I love it. I'm obsessed with doing them.
Did you ever do any of your album covers back in the day? I think of like Reckless Valentine, I guess, is one that's a little different. But did you do any of those?
I think I did.
Yeah. I was just gonna look that up because that's one that just in my mind seems like a.
I can't think of them though. If I did do one, I'm sure I did.
So while John's looking for that, what I notice about your visual art is similar to your music art, is that I see like some almost different genres. Like you talked about the style that you just described. Those are like eye popping, but then you also do like something that looks more like watercolor almost, and there's like landscapes.
Yeah.
And so do you, similar to the way you approach an album, do you start out thinking I'm going to create this and it has to be in this medium, or is it just I'm going to start whatever I can grab is going on the canvas and we're going to let inspiration have its way?
Well, it's mostly inspiration. I'm dyslexic, and I have a lot of I have learning disabilities, and so everything I do from within. It comes from within me because I don't really know how to learn very well. So my guitar playing is a little bit taught, but mostly what I do, it's sort of invent. And it's the same with melodies and lyrics. They come there, melody is language, the same as lyric. And so to me, it's all saying something. It's all saying something. And the trick is to make it all say the same thing. And it's the same with painting. You can't just do anything. It has to connect in a way that your imagination can hear what it's saying or see what it's saying. And that, the brain, that's what the brain wants to do anyway. Maybe I mentioned this to you before, but when you look at clouds, you don't see clouds. You see a dog's head, or you see a witch's broom, or do you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Because your brain is wired for survival to connect the dots, to make sense out of chaos. And inside my head is all chaos. but my brain tries to connect the dots, and what comes out is a synthesis between chaos and order. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. So the act of creating then is catharsis for you, I would imagine, right? Because I have a son who's got
can't stop.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, don't.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
Is the art available? Oh, sorry. Just real quick. Is the art available for purchase, or where can people learn more about it?
I did that. Do you see that?
Yeah, that was the other one I was going to ask about. I'm looking at that one right now on a Perfect Day album. That's what he's holding up right now. Yeah, so that's more the watercolor
part of a
look.
painting, but that's a big painting. But I just used part of it. And that's the guy. That's the guy looking.
So if people want to purchase the art that you're doing now, just marcjordan.com or
yeah.
Well, we know of some people that want to already, so we're hooking
flat
them
music. Flat music.
That's right. Flat music. Well, last question for me is not really a question. It's more of a thank you, because we haven't spoken in person like this since you helped us with a cause that John and I are trying to help along. TJ George has a nonprofit to benefit victims of opioid abuse, and we put together a Christmas compilation last year, and we heard through the grapevine that there may be a volume 2 coming. But you and Amy were gracious enough to contribute a song, your version, also off He Sang, She Sang, which is an awesome version of Baby It's Cold Outside. But you did it with a twist.
Yeah. Well, everything you do now is, it's criticized from some angle.
Yeah, under scrutiny. Yeah.
So so believe it or not, Baby It's Cold Outside. So, they went, somebody said, oh, this is a sexist song, and the man is a predator. And so we flipped it around and we made the woman the predator.
Well, it made you the object of affection too. That was cool.
Oh, I get it. Talk about madness.
That's the version my wife and I are going to sing from now on.
Yeah.
But I wanted to extend a thank you too from TJ, because he was very grateful. I think they did a lot of good with that compilation. They had Al Jarreau, and who else was on there, John? It was Chris Christian, Derek Holt from Climax Blues Band. It was a star-studded affair. And of course,
Orleans.
We'll have a song. We'll have a song for you.
All right.
All right. Awesome.
All right. It's underway. We're already begun.
Yep. All right, TJ, you heard it here first. What else is next though for you, Mark? What's your next creative pursuit? Do you have an album in the works yet?
Yeah, I do.
I bet.
I have songs in the works, and I'm just working on them now. And I think I'm going to reverse the process next. I think what I'm going to do is just put out singles, and then at the end of that, make a CD.
And then you're doing shows too, right? I think I see. Yeah.
Doing live shows.
Doing some concerts, and so that's a lot of fun too. I love playing live now. I never used to like it, but I really I do love the interaction between the audience and the stage. It's wonderful, really. It's a kind of beautiful connection.
Will there be shows in the States?
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe on the West Coast. we've got a little bit of interest. We've got more interest in, believe it or not, Italy and France, and the Netherlands, like Sweden and Denmark, and also England now. So we might go over there in the next spring. And what we'll do in the States, I'm not sure.
Well, Detroit is about as close as you could get to Toronto. So if I
know.
can put in a vote for Detroit, I will.
Yeah.
I did think of one last question because John here is a producer. John and I each actually have separate music projects, kind of not separate, they're more together, but we are sort of doing music that would be considered yacht rock era. You know, it's kind of an homage to the era and the sound. John actually came across a collaboration he's going to be doing with Dane Donahue, which we've already talked about. And it's very much in the vein of what would have happened after his 1979 record. So my question is, do you ever envision yourself wanting to do a new project that harkens back to that sound when you kind of broke into the business? Let's call it a West Coast sound. Pretty please.
Not up until recently, but I actually talked to Graydon about it not a few months ago.
That would be epic.
Yeah, it's just getting the funding for it is the hard thing, because to get all those amazing players, and they won't be the same players, but you know, it's the same ilk.
Yeah.
Takes a lot of money, and if a record company comes up with the dough, I'd do it in a heartbeat.
No, that would be awesome.
And I'd do it with Jay, and he would do it.
Well, if you call Foss, you get the whole band back together, and now you solve your money problems.
Yeah, right.
Well, Foster's sick of the studio.
Really?
He's really, you know, those guys were doing 3 sessions a day. So that's 9-10 hours a day in the studio, and then it's LA, so you gotta think about between the studios was added probably 2 hours to your day.
Yeah.
So 12 hours in a room without windows, basically.
That's what I was going to say. They didn't see much of the California sun in the 70s and 80s.
No, but a lot of them are suffering now. You know, their bones are brittle, and and they have to take you know, extra, you know, vitamin C,
vitamin D,
E, and all that stuff, because they were really deprived. They were just doing it, man.
Well, if there were ever a time for what you and Jay may be considering, it's now. I think the time has come. John, if you want to contribute or start a GoFundMe or something, well, that would be cool.
You know what? You know what? The album that I put out last year, well, when we first talked to you, I asked if anyone had covered "Dance with Me" from your Hole in the Wall album, and he said no, and I was kind of banked that information. So I covered that song last year under.
You're kidding me?
Under the name Page 99, and we did it.
Where can I hear it?
Yeah, I will send you a link in the email so you can check it out. But where was I even going with that? Oh, that that's what it was. All of the funds from that song I'll put towards it. So you know, way streaming makes all kinds of money. You know, I probably have about a quarter saved up.
Yeah.
That won't even pay for the phone call to Foz. Come on, what are you doing?
That's true. Yeah.
All right. Well, cool, Mark. This was a lot of fun. I'm glad you're still very active, because it gives us a reason and an excuse to get you on the show and talk about all this stuff. Great work, and we can't wait to see what's coming next.
All right, baby. Thanks for having me. You guys are really very interesting to talk to.
As are you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark.
Okay, guys.